Good evening, gospel revolutionaries around the world. What's going on here?
Hi.
What happened? I was sitting here by myself and all of a sudden, from the invisible world, I suppose. Hi. You can tell that my good friend Daniel Rouse is here with me today. And we are having a good time. We're doing some research, all for the benefit of the gospel revolution. And we are having a good time, to say the least. Thank you guys for joining me. Yes, and welcome to Gospel Revolutionaries Around the World. This is Michael Lilborn Williams and
Daniel Thomas Rose.
How about that? All here under one roof once again. And we're here to just, actually we want to have some fun about a very serious issue. We've had a lot of people that have commented about it. It is a little bit of a surreal moment for me, since I told these guys 35 years ago that the New Testament, there is nothing about tithing for a New Testament believer. That's what I said it back then in them days. And all of a sudden, we've got seismic changes. Now, please don't think that these are small changes that are coming. A few years ago, Creflo Dollar started saying things about grace, and many years ago, Benny Hinn was telling everybody for 6 months straight he had heard of teachings on grace by a young man by the name of Michael, I forgot my name. Mike Williams. I'm just trying to remember what I called myself back then. But he said, if you ever get close enough within 100 miles of seeing a young man by the name of Mike Williams teaching, please, he said, it'll be worth the drive. And he did that for like 6 months on all of his TV through TBN, and which was his primary outlet at the time. And I was teaching on grace. I was beginning to teach things that he said he had never heard. And one of the things that I was teaching at that time was about the tithe. So much of the things that I had begun to share that some people had begun to pick up on, when they heard me teach on the tithe, that's when I kind of got the boot. We were having a grand old time with understanding grace in the Word of Faith movement and in the context of the Word of Faith movement. If you want a today snapshot of that, that would be Joseph Prince, who I taught the gospel of grace and the gospel of peace on the phone, and also shipped him materials. Now, if you ask him, he's going to deny it that it ever happened. But that did take place, and in fact, he was going to invite me to speak in his church at that time, which was not nearly as large as it is now. And I advised him not to, because I was already in hot water. And I wanted the gospel to be heard to that degree that I told him that I thought that my presence there for him and his congregation, and as much influence as he had around the world, might be a distraction. So I asked him to not invite me to come, because that's what he was wanting. So anyway, so here we are. What has happened? A seismic shift has taken place. And Daniel, why don't you tell the people what's been happening on Facebook and who's saying what?
Yeah, well, the big news was a video that Creflo Dollar put out, and it was him apologizing and him repenting, if you will, about the tithe. And he said, I was wrong. I preached that you needed to tithe. And he has come to find out and learn that in understanding grace, that tithing is under the law.
Yeah.
And it is a law principle. And of course, Benny Hinn, I think, has been on this for a little bit now. I think he repented a couple of years ago about, I don't remember how exactly he worded it, but the extravagant prosperity message. He still is very prosperity message, but maybe not so extravagant. And he had also referenced tithing. So we posted that on our pages here just this last week, and it blew up, Michael.
Yeah.
We had people from all over the world defending tithing and also defending
All over the map.
yeah, everything and everything in between.
Yeah, the grieving the demise of these men from being a part of even the Christian world because they no longer taught tithing. It was it's funny hearing all of these, for me, almost 4-decade-old arguments coming up that I had thrown at me all this time ago. And of course, one of them was that the tithe was valid because it came before the law of Moses, which is a true statement. It was practiced under Abraham, the tithe, but also was circumcision and sacrifice was also under Abraham before the law was ever given. So the thing that we were trying really hard to get people to see was that the very thing they were using to qualify the tithe outside the law, which they were accurate, actually put it in a category of absolutely it is not a part of the new covenant, because Paul wrote more about circumcision than he did any other law, which was before Moses gave the law, and also sacrifices, which those two subjects are two that not one single Christian denomination teaches that you should offer sacrifices.
You mean those no church, the first circumcised of Christ?
So far, we don't know that they are out there, but it would not surprise me at all. Goodness, there's a brand and a breed for everything out there now. I remember Daniel a few years ago coming across the group that they speak about Paul the way we speak about Peter, James, and John, and they call Paul the bastard apostle. So. And but I really respected them because at least they saw the drastic difference between Paul's gospel and Peter, James, and John. It's just they chose to go with Peter, James, and John, and then they constructed this Paul is the bastard apostle, and that nothing he had to say had anything to do with anything. It was Peter, James, and John, and keep the law, and just what they could get out of the books written by Peter and James and John, and that's all the gospel. Everything else they read from Paul, they taught against. So, but like I say, at least they saw the difference between the two. So, as we've been very grateful to see that people are thinking about this now, this was a huge crack in my doctrine, in people that were listening to me that began to entertain this thing. All of the pastors, and I can tell you, we lost count of the pastors who left the ministry. This was one of the main things that they were extremely persuaded of through me sitting down and going through the scriptures with them, is that the New Testament would not be anything that would allow for the tithe, and did not teach the tithe whatsoever. So we had many pastors that left the ministry at that time. So Daniel, how do you see this affecting?
Well, I'm not, it is a big change, and I think we're definitely not saying they have arrived because, and we stock mentally, of course. We know they're perfect, holy, righteous, even though they might be shysters. But they've kind of shifted their message from...
shifted to shyster.
They shifted their message from a demand to tithe into, maybe you call it grace giving.
Just like I did for a long time.
Just like someone else did here. We're not saying any names, but yeah, and I think that, and Michael, with that thought and in that progression of, if they're able to dismantle the tithe,
yeah.
What do you think might happen? I mean, what else could come into question?
Everything comes into question once the tithe is gone. And now anything is possible because, I mean, like we said, we've watched Joseph Prince step into such a wonderful understanding of grace, but then put a halt when it came to the ability to bring the money in. And I remember when I started teaching the grace to give, and I switched to Paul's teachings and he said, let every man give according to that which he hath, not which he does not have. And I said, how can that be tithing? Paul said to give that according to which you have. And everything about tithing was about preaching about giving what you don't have so that you can have.
Right.
That was the whole thing. And so we were able to get that message across. A lot of people were freed from that. The funny thing is that as far as the income of the ministry was concerned, when I started teaching grace to give instead of tithing at all, that there was no percentages, it was from your heart. It was really funny because then people wanted to try to be a part of everything, and they wanted to give from their heart and show that they had a big heart. And I stood on stage and people threw their wallets at me, you know, and it's just, here, take what you want, I mean, I really had that happen to me. And so I took the credit cards. I didn't want the money. But so this is what we're seeing now in these two major ministries is what you might call a crack in this frozen tundra of really bad doctrine that is keeping a whole world in oppression and frozen into place instead of being able to grow and increase in the heart and mind. And lambano, the truth of the gospel. I bet some of you were hoping we'd never say that word again. We did it anyway. So we don't want to beleaguer the point here on this, except to acknowledge that this is something that is important that has happened. We are not trying to change Christianity. That's not a goal of the gospel revolution. Our goal is to share the gospel. And apart from Christianity, because there's still a hell of a whole lot other than the tithe that these gentlemen need to address. Now, let me say, when you're making comments, and I know it's really hard to say because it's like, so give the money back, and they deserve that. Believe me, I'm not trying to protect them from the words that they deserve to hear. But if there's a way that you can encourage them and that, we appreciate the direction you're going and encourage them. There's more to the grace of God other than giving up the tithe. And you really can be a part of kind of helping them move along because that they're listening to what people are saying, and most of it is quite a harsh critique. I'll guarantee you most of it is, especially from those who were already set free from this notion of tithing. And then they're getting the backlash from those ministers and preachers who have been threatened by the fact that they've come out and said these things. So you may think it's strange that I would say that maybe just reach in if you're on their sites or you are connected to them in some way. that you might just encourage them about this issue, and tell them that you appreciate the honesty of their hearts coming to a point. Yeah, it's a little late. It's a few $billion late maybe, but we're looking for an influence of the gospel that will go around the world. So this can be a part of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're questioning and you're wondering about the tithe, we encourage you to look at that. I remember one of Michael's famous statements: everything that was a what became a who. And that's with the tithe too. Christ was our tithe. And so as you begin to deconstruct, if you will, these doctrines, or look at them at least, consider that there's a lot more out there too, and just ask some questions and search, and be careful to ask the questions. And I don't say be cautious about it. Do it. Take caution and take the step and ask the questions, because questions are the lifeblood of the gospel revolution.
They are indeed. And that whole process is still going on, that everything that was a what became a who, and our understanding in the gospel revolution. And that's all the tithe was. The tithe was a giving of a portion to sanctify the whole. How's that not Jesus?
Right.
It's like a giving of the portion to sanctify the whole. That's why circumcision fits in the very same category. He became the circumcision, and therefore we are the circumcision. We are the tithe. We are the thing that has been set apart in its entirety, not just 10%, but in fact that God has used Christ as the tithe for the entire human race where righteousness is concerned, and he has received 100-fold. He's gotten 100-fold return on that tithe. So good news.
Yeah, this is a good step, but I know that as Christianity always does, there'll be some other weird doctrines that arise out of it. But hey, Jesus is the tithe, and if you want to give.
Absolutely. And we love you guys. Thank you for sitting in here with me and my visitor. Really appreciate Daniel coming down. We're going to be doing a lot of research. We're getting ready again. There's another download in process of questions that we have to research and do some very serious work on. And you, no doubt, will be the recipients of that research. And we do appreciate everything that you do to keep this going so that other people can hear. We love you guys.
Love you.